EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to the JAKIB post-game show. The Philadelphia Eagles get the win today and move to 5-2 on the season. A 37-17 blowout. Second half domination is my first takeaway. I'm your host, Zander here on the JAKIB post-game show. That's Dan Sileo, host of the National Football Show, 1987 national champion, former NFL player. We'll be joined by John McMullen in a second. Big Sills, that's a big win today, my man. What's your first takeaway as I come to you before we get John in here?
Love the fact they ran the ball more than they threw it. They were effective throwing the ball, but once again, I mean, this came down to playing 2022 football. When Jalen Hurts looks like 2022, this is what makes him the effective player that he is. I mean, look at the numbers again across the board. This is 3 straight games now that they've run the football more than they've thrown it. 20 attempts, 16 of 20, opened up the passing game. Hey, by the way, I mean, the real takeaway from this is not Hurts. The real takeaway is that defense is getting better and better and better. And what it did was today, against a really good high-powered offense, it really gave you a sense of where that defense is starting to grow. I'll tell you this, man. That kid, Cooper DeJean, in my opinion, Cooper DeJean, he has shown me more in the last 3 weeks than I've seen all year of Quinyon Mitchell. He's a hitter. He runs to the ball. I mean, he forces plays. That kid's a good-looking football player, dude. And to what someone just posted over here, this is another football game where the quarterback didn't turn the football over. So, again, by the way, Jalen Hurts outplayed Joe Burrow in this football game.
Massively.
And he had a better game than what Joe did. So, once again, I mean, you know, I've said this before to all of you, and I think I've even said it to John. Here's what that thing looked like again. It looked like 2022 at its finest. They were setting up the pass with the run. Hurts was effective running the football. Those passes were wide open. And I think this is one of those things that John said earlier in the week. This is one of those takeaway games where, hey, look, the quarterback played well. There's no doubt. And the running game, once again, almost 40 attempts. They've run the ball, if you think about it, the last 2 weeks, 80 times. They did exactly what I thought they wouldn't do in this game, and that was predominantly be a run football team in this game, and that's exactly what they did. They ran them off the field in this football game, and Hurts was absolutely effective. I mean, look at the
16 to 20, 80% completions, 236, a touchdown. Jalen Hurts had a tremendous game today. Let me get to John. John, welcome to the show, my friend. Your first takeaways after you watched the 37-17 blowout happen in this game in Cincinnati. A second half domination, I said. Johnny Mac, your first takeaway.
Oh, man, they destroyed them. I'm rarely impressed. I'm very impressed by this team today. They just destroyed them. Cincinnati didn't know what to do, didn't know what was coming, couldn't defend the pass, couldn't defend the run, couldn't do anything. Bad decisions all over the place from the coaching staff. Just a really impressive performance. And I know everybody's going to talk about the offense, and the offense was great, but I'm more impressed by the defense,
Me too.
Especially after that start. Boy, they were tremendous. I think, 10-3 game. The first drive looked just what we all feared. Huge completion percentage, just going down the field. And then they just locked it down and played really impressive football. A couple big plays here and there, but even the turnovers started to come late. Great play by Isaiah Rodgers, deflecting the football. Zach Bond with the forced fumble late. Only a perfect example, only had 1 sack in the game, but who cares? I mean, they were swarming all over the place. They made everything difficult. The 4th down stop, Cooper DeJean on Jamar Chase. Just everything about this team. And Jalen Hurts got hot late. I thought that the Bengals secondary couldn't cover A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. That turned out to be true. They finally got to it, probably a little bit too late. And then that's exactly the way. That's what the Eagles envisioned. Get the lead and let Saquon close it out. And that's exactly what happened. And now the first ever win in Cincinnati. So next time you have Burrow on, tell him to calm down, Dan. It had nothing to do. Nick Sirianni had no idea. And they win in Cincinnati. Just impressive. Everything about it was impressive.
No doubt about it. A very impressive.
Let me ask you about Calcaterra real quick here. Is there some Zach Ertz in that kid when it comes to catching?
Well, I don't want to go that
far. I'm not going to compare the kid's career.
You're burying the lead, my friend. You're burying the lead.
I'm talking about a kid.
No, he had a good game. He had a good game. It was
had the skill set like that where he's really good hands and maybe not the best blocker, John. I mean, again, I'm not comparing ability. I'm comparing skill set here. Do you see some of that here with the kid?
Well, yeah, he's definitely a pass catcher first and not much of a blocker. And yeah, he's more athletic than I think people give him credit for. And look, when you're not paying attention to him because you're worried about AJ and Devontae, you saw there were a couple wide open. And it's good to see Jalen get him the football. Sometimes we talk about, does Jalen trust these non-starters? We know he trusts AJ. We know he trusts Devontae, Dallas Goedert. But he's had a difficult time trusting the other guys when they're forced to play. And he was able to do that today, and that's very helpful. He played a great game, 4 touchdowns when you think about Jalen Hurts. Boy, nothing not to like. Even Jake Elliott, going back to Cincinnati. Evan McPherson misses the 54-yarder. He makes the 49-yarder right down the middle. Everything impressive today. It's hard to come up with a negative, to be honest, unless you're the Bengals.
Well, hey, John, no points in the first quarter. Still,
well, who cares? I mean, that was
the offense today.
That wasn't the offense. Was moving the ball. That was by far.
That was Burrow.
They only had the one possession in the first quarter. That's by far their best first possession of the game.
Hey, John, they had the ball 3 minutes in the first quarter.
Well, yeah. Well, 10:04, and then they had it to rest. But and they scored. And they scored on that first drive. It ended up only being a field goal, but that's only because there was sort of a phantom holding call on Tyler Steen that really set it back. They were in the red zone, ready to take that in, and they got the phantom holding call, but had to settle for a field goal. So that was their best. Even that was their best first possession of the season. In the second half, I mean, they took the ball. They just dominated everything they did. It was touchdown, field goal. They had four out of 5 touchdown drives, and the other one was a field goal.
How many punts, John?
Braden, he had 1, I believe, in the first half.
All right, well, let me jump in here because I want to get this thing on. We're going to talk about defense. We're going to talk about the regime. We're going to talk about it all. But let's not bury the lead here. We got to talk about Jalen Hurts, quarterback 1 today. He played tremendous. The stats, 16 of 20, 236 and a touchdown. He took 0 sacks. Really, the only negative part about Jalen's game today was the throw in the flat, which I'm not going to make a big deal about. What a game for him. Look, I've been critical. I've been calling for him to come out. He came out to play today. That was Jalen's best game of the year by far. Very impressive performance, I would say, for quarterback 1. Big Sales, I'll come to you first. Jalen Hurts, man, what's your take today?
3-game trend now, no turnovers.
Yep.
That's the biggest takeaway right now. They're being very protective with the football, and most notably him. I would say this since the bye, that has clearly been something that the kid was talking about when he got in front of John and all the guys there in the pit saying that, it was one of the most productive buys that we had, and it had to be about protecting the football. And that's exactly what they have done. I mean, I've said this before. 1 game is never going to sway me on a player. That doesn't work in that league. 3 games, you're starting to create a trend. 3 years, you start to know what the player is. That's what you look at with an NFL guy. And again, you go back 3 weeks. That's what and how you put a trend book together and how you put a game plan together and the games that you've played against common opponent. But right now, the Eagles, there's no doubt. I'm with John. Hey, man, I got the quarterback played really well, and it's important that he plays well. But I'm not really going to give something and kudos to a kid who, again, has to do this on a daily basis anyway. What I've been impressed with has been dude, I cannot believe that defense 3 weeks ago, okay, 3 weeks ago had 6 sacks. Hey, John,
you're spinning it back to the defense. The question was on Jalen Hurts, my friend.
But John, do you not agree? The most impressive thing about that game today was not the quarterback; it was the defense.
Well, the offense was great. But I think everybody's going to talk about the offense, and hey, that's great, rightfully so. But I think the defense was just as good. And that's what you want. I mean, you want that complementary football, and you want that balance between both aspects. And this is the first time they've been able to do it pretty consistently, in a meaningful type situation. They played obviously very good against the New York Giants, but I think we all looked at that and said, well, what does it really mean? And even though it was 28-3, there was not much relevance. I don't think Jalen Hurts played very well in that game. So this game, you have a better opponent. You have the quarterback playing well. You have the running game, and you have the defense. For the first time, you say this is pretty complete, and a pretty dominant, especially in the second half. Just a flat out dominant performance to the point Cincinnati didn't know what to do, and. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want. Fourth quarter, second straight fourth quarter. Today, I believe it was 18 plays, 14 runs. It was 14 runs because you had the game in hand and you could run it out. But even in that, the 4 passes you had, on the final touchdown drive, you had 3rd and 7. And Jalen Hurts to Devontae Smith for the first down.
Over the middle, Johnny Mac.
Yeah. You had
about time.
Yeah. And he did that to EJ a little bit. You had another short pass to Grant Calcaterra on 2nd and 10. Everything effective. And
he looked like 22.
Yeah, it looked like one of the best teams in football. Now, to Dan's point, it's one game. Can you do it consistently? You're coming back home to face a Jacksonville team that isn't very good. Are you gonna keep them in the game? How are you gonna perform in that game? Are they gonna get back to the consistent juggernaut they have been? I think they can. I still worry about more I worry in a weird way. I worry about more of the offense than the defense because I think Vic's got them to the point that where we all projected they need to be. They're not going to be a top 5 defense, but they're going to be middle of the road and they're going to be capable.
If they play like they did today, they could be better than middle of the road. I mean, there's some dudes out there that are making some plays on defense now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why I'm most impressed by the defense and the consistency of the defense. They gave up 17 points to a Bengals team that got and I know T. Higgins wasn't out there, but you saw how effective they were on that first drive.
Still 9th in points, John. They put up points. You know what I mean? I mean, that's a good offense.
And they were moving the football at times, but whether it's fourth down mistakes or things like that, or late in the game, you're taking a shot to Jamar Chase and Isaiah Slay's not even on the field because that's a negative that he had to leave with a groin injury. And he's right there and he makes a pass deflection right to GJ. I mentioned the strip by Zach Bond, little peanut punch out, and Nakobe Dean's right there. So they're starting to turn the football over. That's a positive. And Slade was talking about that to me during this week. He said, you have to earn the right. You always talk about earning the right as a pass rusher, the rush the passer, 3rd and long. Same thing with turnovers. You got to earn the right to get turnovers. Cincinnati in desperate situations, trying to make extra yardage, trying to take shots to get back in the game. That's when you get turnovers. And the Eagles were able to do it.
Great stuff today from the offense. I'll stay on Jalen Hurts for a second because I think he answered a lot of narratives today. I mean, we talked about the throwing over the middle of the field. We talked about all the things from the pocket today. I thought he looked more comfortable, more calm, more. And John, and
by the way, Brett Johnson, I forgot to mention Brett.
Yeah,
Brett did a great job today.
Yeah,
shut him up.
Hey, but John, can I just get this out? Because we talked about last week after the win, and we're like, you can't be a ground and pound team. But isn't today a glimpse at what it can look like when you set it up with the run, you have a balanced offensive attack, Jalen makes the throws he needs to make, and now you have a 37-point outing versus the Bengals, and it all looks good. This is what I was talking about with the running game.
I see you're going too far.
Wait, man, it's building blocks. It's not a narrative.
It's not a narrative. The new coordinator comes in, learning the new terminology. Get him up
4
to speed
quarters
slowly,
is a narrative answer? You gotta be kidding me. That's the first I've ever heard of that 4 quarters answers a story on a football team.
I didn't say it answers a story. It's another building block on 3 weeks.
You just got through saying, hasn't he answered the question? No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't.
Well, he was talking about
3 weeks of building blocks.
He was talking about.
Let me understand.
Let me point to Zander's talking about the running game. So understand this game is 10-10 at halftime. The Eagles get the football in the 3rd quarter. All right, they run the ball twice in a row. Saquon Barkley for 3 yards, Saquon Barkley for 2 yards. 3rd and 5, Jalen Hurts to Devontae Smith, 15 yards. 1st and 10 at the 50, Jalen Hurts to Grant Calcaterra for 28 yards. Barkley, the running game for 1. Jalen Hurts over the middle to Jack Stoll, the play he got banged up on, for 6 yards. Then a nice little run by Barkley for 8 yards, and Jalen Hurts takes it himself for the touchdown. That was the passing game, dude. That was Devontae Smith,
doesn't the run
Grant Calcaterra. And then Cincinnati comes right back and scores. That was the dueling touchdowns. So it's 17-7. Then the Eagles get the ball back. Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown for 23 yards. Saquon Barkley for 2 up the middle. Jalen Hurts the deep shot to Devontae Smith. That's when they took over the game. Come on, guys.
No, I agree.
And then
I believe that the run helps set that up. I don't think I'm saying anything crazy here. I think the run helps set that up.
The 4th quarter is about closing the game, and that's where you get the big because you're in control of the game.
Yeah, but John, they still had a balanced attack in the first 3 quarters of the game.
No, there's nothing.
They had 40. They had 40 runs versus 20 passing attempts.
Yeah, but John's point is they ran a lot at the end of the game.
They ran in the 4th quarter, same as last week.
Right.
Which is what you want to do. That's what you're setting up.
I get it.
But it's A.J. Brown. It's Devontae Smith. It's the big shots down the field. Crippled Cincinnati. I get it. Saquon's great. I get it. He's great. And he did his job in the 4th quarter again. And it was phenomenal. But they took over the game with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown in the 3rd quarter. That's all.
No doubt about that. I agree with what you're saying, John. I'm just saying I think that the running game helps establish that for the quarterback in a big way.
Anytime you run the football well, it helps the quarterback.
Correct.
Anytime.
So let me ask you this: is this the best offensive performance you've seen from this team since the 22 season?
No, I doubt.
I
have to look better. They had some.
Maybe Miami, John, of a year ago, that complete game they had at the
Buffalo too was a good.
Okay,
yeah, they've had a lot of good offensive games.
Well, I don't think Hurts has had a lot of good games since the start of 23. I think that game because he's had a lot of spotted games that
he's been inconsistent. Yeah, I mean, but they've had a lot of highs, and that's why I'm saying, look, this game was great, but we got to see that consistency from week to week.
Right.
which I agree with. Now, if you're talking about since the collapse, even then they had
Yes.
good offensive games against the Giants, the first game against the Giants and against the Cardinals.
Yep.
But yeah, probably since that collapse. So we're talking about December in San Francisco when they were blown off the field and sort of, had their confidence or whatever, mojo, whatever you want to call it, taken away from probably their most impressive performance since that day, I would say.
Big Cells, your thoughts on the balanced attack from the offense and just the way the offense looked today as a whole?
They were clearly – they took the hammer out and they just beat up the Cincinnati Bengals. There was two factors in the game that ended up really being an issue here. One, the defensive front four stopped the run of the Bengals. They couldn't get any play action going. And when the Eagles got their run game going, the back end and the two wide receivers, and Calcaterra is becoming an issue now when it comes to pass catching. This guy's getting 50-plus yards every game, it seems. I look up, he's somewhere in the stats now, and he's filled in nicely for Dallas Goedert. And you're starting to see them threaten the seam with him a little bit. And I'll say this to you about Devontae Smith. Boy, I'll tell you something. He is one tough son of a bitch.
Oh, isn't he, man? He's the strongest 165-year-old pound guy I've ever seen.
The toughest 114 pounds of toughness I've ever seen in my life. This guy, man, he is so tough, the way he runs. And I'll tell you something else that Barkley does that the two backs that you've had the last 2 years haven't had. Man, when that guy runs down that sideline, you better have your ankle turned, but that guy's going to run your ass over. He is as physical. John, you've been watching and covering the Eagles a hell of a lot longer than me, and you've seen Saquon Barkley a hell of a lot more than me. I didn't realize how physical of a running back he was because he is one physical back in there, and he reminds me a little bit of Emmett. 2 yards, -3, -4, 58.
Exactly.
All of a sudden, he or like Barry Sanders, I should say. Barry used to have minus plays, and all of a sudden he'd have a 60-yarder, and he would take it to the house. That's
a home run hitter. I've been saying it with Zander for all the time. It could be, Aaron Judge, strikeout. Regular season Aaron Judge. A home run.
Feeding it to him, and
not the World Series, Aaron.
Not World Series.
I'll tell you this, Zander, to go back to what we were commenting on, the three of us here on this. Look, man, the only thing I'm saying is by the way, that was Kellen Moore's best game plan that I've seen so far this year because he was on his screws today with the proper play calls. Did you see that ridiculous Zach Taylor played that flare pass that they threw out there on 4th down?
Yeah,
what are you trying to
Cooper DeJean.
Dude,
well, how about third down before that?
Like this, you're watching the play call going. What's the one thing the Eagles are doing a great job of today? That's pursuit to the ball. You don't want to throw a screen pass like that. It was great defense, shitty play call, more on the great defensive play. But I thought Kellen really had a good game. Now, for me, look, I want to see these games being put together. I want to see the play caller on the same page. I want to see all this. Look, there's no doubt I'm not going to dismiss the fact that that's a high-powered offense, albeit maybe with a little bit of a checkup needing because there was no T. Higgins in there. But still, you saw that first play drive, man, 17 plays right down your face, man. They did a nice job at rallying. I think Vic did a good job. I think the coordinators had a good game. I mean, that's a great building block to head into the second half of the season here.
No doubt about it. Let's get into the defense. And I will say, the thing by the way, thanks everybody in the chat. We got a big crowd in here right now. Appreciate each and every one of you. All the super chats will be read. Just got to get through some of these topics with John and Dan, and they will all be addressed before the show ends. We appreciate each and every one of you guys. Smash that like button. As far as Jalen Hurts, my final comments on him are, look, if I'm going to criticize him when he has bad days, I'm going to give him his flowers when he has an elite performance. I thought he had a great performance today. He easily iced that game.
How about that deep shot?
And John, John, just to your point, said Kellen had a great game plan. I agree. Jalen executed it perfectly today, and that makes the game plan look a lot better when the execution is there. Great stuff from Jalen Hurts today. A very good performance. That's now 3 in a row. for Jalen. Turnover-free football, good football, getting back to his form. Let's move into that defense. Cooper DeJean, guys, he stands out to me. He really, even on the plays that he gets beat, he stands out to me like a sore thumb in a good way, in a very good way. John, I'll come to you first here. Defensively, what'd you like today?
First of all, Vic waited way too long on Cooper DeJean.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't care that he missed 20 days in training camp. I don't give give me a break. It doesn't take 4 weeks to speed up, especially a guy who's got a high football IQ like he does. And then I forget, we have that one viewer on the morning show who's constantly, saying about people don't realize how athletic Cooper DeJean is.
Oh my God.
It is absurd.
He's more athletic than Quinyon Mitchell, man. He's just maybe not
way more.
He's
way
just
more. I shouldn't Quinyon's, but yeah, Cooper's and because he's a white guy, let's be honest, people don't believe it. But you see it. Yeah, it's rare, but that's what he is. And I always bring up Kent Lee Platt, who does the great job when you talk about the combine and just the athletic ability of the various players. And this goes back to 1987. So 1987, 2,469 cornerbacks looked at from a measurables, trait standpoint, athleticism standpoint. Cooper DeJean is number 28 out of 2,469.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
He is he ran a 4.45 40. He's got a 38.5 vertical leap. He's got over 10 feet broad jump. He's just so explosive. And he's a natural sort of football player as well on top of it. So yeah, he's going to be around for a long time. Quinyon Mitchell's going to be around for a long time. And since they put Cooper, that's not the only reason, because chemistry is a part of it. But as soon as they put Cooper DeJean in this defense, there's a marked difference. And I think it should be obvious to everybody. And that's Jamar Chase he's dealing with in the open field. So, yeah, that was a bad play call. And the third down before it was even worse when they telegraphed everybody hey, we're giving the ball to Zach Moss, who's got no explosion whatsoever. And the Eagles stopped the 3rd and 1 pretty easily, bringing up the 4th down. Yeah, the Eagles won in all phases. They even won in coaching. Everybody hates the Eagles coaches. They destroyed Zach Taylor with the 4th down aggression. I was talking to Zander at halftime.
Yeah, and the Bengals picked the wrong spot to go for it on 4th down. I mean,
well, they had to at that point.
I know,
they
but
should have won it early.
There was still a 3rd quarter, John. I mean, you could have put the ball deep and not given the
Eagles. But that I don't have a problem with, because you have to have a feeling for the game, and you knew that Cincinnati defense wasn't going to be able to hold up. You knew. So I don't blame them for going for it.
Yeah, I'm just saying I would have went reversed from what they did. I would have went for it down in the red zone, and I probably would have punted it deep there. And
meanwhile, the Eagles go for it in the first half. They go for it on their own 39-yard line because they don't want to give up a possession, and they know they have the tush push, and they know they're going to get it. That's such an advantage that people ignore and complain about it.
Cincinnati went for it, John, and didn't get it. Gave the Eagles a short field for their first touchdown heading into half. I was like, Hoss, why would you do something like that? I thought that was a mistake by them as they went into that half. I mean, going for the field goal, you should have punted it there, man. Don't give the Eagles when you know that they were.
McPherson's a good kicker. He just missed it. But, 50. I think everyone looks at a 54-yarder now.
50-yard field, though, man. I mean, all they had to do was just get into field goal position. And I'm like,
well, you're trusting. I don't have a problem with that, because you're trusting a good kicker. Typically,
with a defense like that, though, you know that they weren't going to stop him, and you're 26th in defense.
Well, it's got more to do with confidence.
I don't know.
There's one guy I also want to give a flower to today on defense. How about that play from Isaiah Rodgers on the interception? on
Yeah, that
Jamar
was great.
Chase,
Yeah.
looks up, finds the football, easily deflects it away right into the hands of C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Nobody
Now,
questioned his cover skills. They questioned
I
his
know, but
toughness
still, that was.
on
I just
guys
want to
on
give
the
him. I
ground.
just want to give him credit. I thought that was a really, really good play. Oh, not an easy receiver to cover, by the way. That guy gives fits to the greatest cornerbacks.
No, that
in
was
the
a
league.
great play. That was a
let
great
alone
play.
bench.
I thought Jamar quit a little bit on that too and didn't go up because I think he lost track of where the ball was, and I thought he thought the play was over because the deflection went right into CJ's hands.
Yeah, it went right
so I
there.
thought there was a little bit, but I'll say this to you, man. I got to, you guys mentioned all these dudes, but there is nobody that has been more harder on Nakobe Dean. But man, I don't know. I'm not gonna say it, but I'm gonna say it. This, John. I'm
He's
starting
doing better.
I'm starting to see a player here.
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
starting.
I think Vic's
I
using
think
him
Vic's
better.
had an impact on him.
Um,
I think Vic Fangio's had an impact on this guy.
Well, he's letting him go downhill because that's what he does well. So I think he's figured out. All right,
Does have a knack for making plays. He really does.
He's picking his Zander. You're now in a point where you're going like this. Okay, well, he is an NFL player. He can play. You can see it.
Yeah, you can.
Maybe more reps, continuing the reps. Now we have to see how he gets because he still struggles with covering people.
Yeah, and like John says, every linebacker in the league.
However, I'll tell you this: when it comes to filling a gap, and it comes to running to the ball, I don't know, John.
Except Fred Warner, I'll say.
No,
but
he's nothing like that. But I'll tell you what, from where he's come from, though, is where I'm at.
No, to Zander's point, nobody can cover a linebacker in this league except Fred Warner. I say that. I mean, I go back to the opener, Kansas City. By the way, Cleveland beat Baltimore.
Jameis Winston, you see what he did in there, man? He
you
turned
get
that
even a competent quarterback. It's amazing.
Unbelievable.
Holy mackerel. They beat it's one thing to beat a middle of the pack team. They beat the Ravens.
I know.
Oh, the Browns.
That's to John's point, though, Zander, that every week.
I know, man.
The NFL is up and down. You don't know. By the way, you know how most people talk about the NFL is the biggest flip-flop league in the history of sports, isn't it, John? 1 week, you'll swear to God the Ravens are the best team in the NFL. Then you turn around and the Ravens get beat by one of the worst rosters in the NFL. Yeah, that's what the league is, man. It's a flip-flop league.
Yeah, and you'll see it every week. The Packers are all look at Minnesota. They went from 5-0. They're in third place. Detroit put up 52 today.
They're the best team in the league.
They're 6-1. The Packers held on to beat the Jaguars. They're 6-2. They haven't had their bye. The Vikings went from 5-0 to 5-2 in 2 weeks, to third place in 2 weeks.
Yeah, impressive performance today. Birds get the win 37-17, a blowout, really. And guys, if you take them in the second half was what? It was 10-10 at halftime. So 27-7, the Eagles outscored the Bengals.
Dominant performance.
Just absolutely dominating performance. And Jalen Hurts, elite today. I'm giving him his credit. He was elite. Today. Big Sills.
All right, he was elite today. Sure, okay, I'm in.
16-20.
Johnny was elite today. Whatever. All right, I'm on.
4 total touchdowns. The man.
Hey, I'm with Zander. He had a great game today.
He did. No,
Can he do it consistently? That I'm not on board with.
Yeah, I know. He had an elite day today, Zander.
Hey, listen, it's building blocks. This is what we've kind of been talking about on the shows where you're stacking weeks. I know it didn't look like you wanted the 2 last week. I know it didn't look like you wanted the 2 weeks ago. But now you're building on what you have.
No, I think that validates
explosive offense come back out of this football team. Devontae Smith gets involved. A.J. Brown was involved today. Calcaterra was involved. He spread the ball around a little bit. He used the middle of the field. He stayed in the pocket. Jalen had a great day today.
I agree with that. Jahan Dotson didn't get involved.
No, he didn't.
Jahan Dotson.
Oh, I'm sorry, John.
Dotson. No response on Jahan Dotson.
I did see him out there occasionally.
Hey, who's the guy that slapped Nick's hands off his Nick went over and talked to him, and one of the players slapped his hands off his jersey. It was like number 18. I thought that was Britton Covey's number.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I thought I saw a guy out there.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
So
Believe me, I'm
Burrow
sure
here.
somebody in the Philly media will pick that up come Monday.
I'm sure
Oh, it was
I'll hear.
Josh Sweat. That's right. No, it was Sweat.
Sweaty's 19, yeah.
Yeah, it was Josh
So Nick
Sweat.
Sirianni talked after the game, obviously, and the quote I'm getting from our man Brandon Lee Goutwin from Bleeding Green Nation. I think the identity of this football team is physical, is the word he used, and I love that word because I think that's the perfect fusion of what the fans want, whether they're right or wrong. And John, can I say a physical passing team? Does that work? Is that what the identity of this team could be? Physical passing team?
I don't give a shit about it.
John, you take that. You take that one, John.
It's funny when Nick
take that one.
When Nick is telling the truth, he'll say, I don't know what identity is. You do what you do to win a game when he's telling the truth. When he's on and he knows, it's on WIP or something like that, then he starts to pander. Then Captain Pander comes out.
I was pander on the pregame show, and that worked out pretty well.
Captain Pander.
Yeah, then he's the pander, as I like to call him, the panderer in chief. The guy who wears the Philly sweatshirts in Red October. The guy who's going to wear the Sixers shirts.
I haven't heard this before. All right,
if the Sixers can make the playoffs, that guy. So I've talked to him enough behind the scenes. He doesn't give a shit about identity. He wants to win the game. Yeah, and he's going to do what he does, and he proves this.
Those are media words.
Yeah, exactly. Those are media words.
Really?
I'll
you guys think identity is immediate? Like, you don't think there's
God,
you either are or you aren't.
Sense in the locker room, though, of like, this is who we are. This is what we're going to do. We're going to impose our will, or whatever that identity is. You don't think that exists at all inside a locker room?
You got tough players. You got tough players. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah.
That's your identity. Your identity is the people in the room.
Yeah, that's right. That's a media-driven thing and a fan-driven thing, but it's fan-driven because it's media-driven. Like you don't.
Well, you can take a look. John, Jalen mentions the word identity a lot. It's not entirely
because he gets asked about it a million times, so it gets ingrained.
Okay. Well.
Like the point I'm trying to make is your identity wants to win. Yeah, that's your identity. How do you win? Do you win like you played the New York Giants? Yeah, go do it. That's what the Eagles want to be. They want to be able to win every single way. To win as many ways, because you can win a football game in 90 different ways, including special teams. You want to be able to win every kind of game, no matter what happens. Because Jim Schwartz would always say games have personalities. No matter what happens, find a way to win that freaking game. And no matter what you have to do, if you got to pass it 45 times, Nick says this a million times, we'll pass it 45 times. But we run it 45 times, we have to run it, we'll run it 45 times. I just, like, they're not going to say, all right, we're going to play this way for 17 games. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. So the old Mike Tyson quote, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. That's what happens. And on every Sunday, everybody's got their plan, and then it goes awry. Like that, Doug Peterson used to tell me about the scripts. Scripts would drive him crazy because everybody loves to talk. Oh, the script, the first 15 plays. 9 times out of 10, you're off the script. You never finish those 15 plays because you're off it. Might be a penalty, might be something, might be an interception, whatever. 9 times out of 10, you're off the script before you ever finish it.
Let's get to our first commercial break here, and we'll come back and we'll kick it back around. We'll have John for another 20 minutes or so on the show and let John go and do. He's got a bunch of other work, obviously, after this game. I have one question, and I don't need long, drawn-out responses. On a Sunday in October versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Sills, you're up first. Was Jalen Hurts elite today?
Yes, he was elite today. Yes.
I love it. John, was Jalen Hurts elite today?
Yeah, he was phenomenal.
I love it. Good stuff from both John McMullen and Dan Sileo. Great breakdown here in the opening segment. Appreciate everybody in the chat. I will get to all super chats before we get out of here. So I appreciate everybody for the support today. As always, Jacob Nation always showing out. Big crowd in here. Make sure you guys smash that like button. And for those who want to clip it, go ahead and clip it. You just heard Big Sills.
Hold on for a second.
Jalen
I do have one thing to say to you, Zander. Hey, John, you know how you say that, they're not really looking for balance? Well, here's the last 3 weeks. 36 rushing attempts, 45 rushing attempts, and 40 rushing attempts.
First of all, I've never said they're not looking for balance. Second of all, if you take, I don't know how many times I have to say this. They're ahead in the fourth quarter.
They weren't ahead in any of those last ones.
14 out of 15.
Going back and forth.
14 out of 15 times they ran the football in the fourth quarter against the Giants. They had 15 plays. They ran it 14 times. Why?
I got it. No. I'm talking about
here. 18 plays, 14 plays. They ran it. Why?
Okay.
Yeah, that tilts the scales. I do think, to your point, though, Sills, there was a lot of balance early in the game this week. Good stuff. Let's get to our commercial break. We'll continue to kick it around when we get back. Appreciate everybody in the chat today. Hit that like button. We appreciate each and every one of you for being here. We'll be back in 3 minutes on the Jacob Jalen is Elite post-game show. Back in 3.